Part 2 of the lift-up bridge, securing and aligning the tracks. So everything works out great. So here we go. Hi, I'm Tom Kvichak, and this is Tom's Trains and Things. This channel was created to help other modelers who are in need of guidance in pursuing their dream of building a model railroad. So let's get going with part 2 of laying the track and gluing down that cork. If you need to review what I've done so far to get to this point, you could check it out right here or in the description. Under the track, I'll be using 4mm cork. I bought a roll 2 foot by 4 foot for $16.99 at Michael's. I cut 2 pieces of the width of the lift-out bridge that will expand the length of it. I had to flatten it out before attempting to glue it since it was rolled up. This is the result after compressing it for about 2 hours under the weights. I'm spreading full strength white glue on the bridge. I'm using this Dollar Tree kitchen tool to spread it out. I put a mark on here so I know where to stop spreading it. I went a little bit over that. I have a scrap piece of plywood right here. I'm going to put it on here and clamp it in place. To get things out of the way, I clamped everything down and then lifted up the bridge. I let this thing set overnight, clamp down, so let's see what this thing looks like. Boom, okay. See what this thing looks like. Oop, I got a little bit. Got a little bit on here. That's something to get excited about right there. Now here's the second piece. This is going to be a little bit tricky because we have to cut this one. So I am going to clamp this in. I started on the bottom with my blade and I poked up through on both sides to get a starting point and then came up on top and then came across like this. Voila! So there's the center piece. I'll do that piece last. This one will be the same way, using Elmer's glue. Pour some in here. Spread it down over here, as close as we can get it. And we'll put this on here like this. And this one's going to be a little bit trickier on clamping these skinny parts down, but we'll figure it out. On this one, I'm going to put the plywood on top of it, and in the back part on the wings, I use the weights right there. We'll let that set for a few hours. Now that the glue is dry on the cork, it's time to sand down the old cork where it is just a little bit higher. I used a pair of re-railers before I got onto the bridge. Also had to shave down part of the old scenery, as you can see on the right, to make room for the tracks. I used a pair of parallel track tools to get the tracks in place, and then noticed that one of my rulers was pretty close to where it is, so I placed the ruler in between the tracks for a dual purpose, to keep it straight and to keep the tracks parallel and evenly spaced, as you can see right here. You can see the parallel track tools way in the back. The width of the ruler is just a few millimeters less than the parallel track tools, so it was an easy transition going through the wall. Before laying the tracks, I made sure I poked holes through the pre-drilled holes for the nails so it would be easy to secure the tracks in place. I needed 4 pieces of flex track to do the bridge. Using the straight edge ensures that the track is perfectly straight and aligned throughout the length of the bridge. Ensuring that the track is perfectly aligned when the bridge is dropped into place is the most important part of this project. So I inserted 2 nails in the ties closest to the gap. I used a Dremel moto tool to cut the rail and the ties. You'll want the rails on the movable part of the bridge to extend past the gaps, as you can see in this photo right here. This ensures that you have enough clearance and the tracks do not hit when the bridge is lifted. Next step is to add more tracks to the other end of the bridge. I extended the straight edge so the new tracks could be aligned perfectly with the old ones. Using a pin vise to drill a hole slightly smaller than the nail allows the nail to go in smoothly yet hold the rail in place. Using duckbill pliers allows the nail to be inserted easily in the plywood. I started my curves back far enough so I would have a straight section where I needed to cut the rail at the end of the bridge. I didn't want a curve in the flex track where I needed to cut the gap in the track. Cutting a gap in the curve will cause the track to straighten out, and that would be disastrous because it would be just like a kink in the track on a curve. So I straightened the track for about 3 inches so I could span that gap. Since the track spanned the gap on an angle, you can see I put my pin vise on an angle also, so the nail would go in and get more of the plywood since I was right on the edge of the plywood. You can see in this shot how I secured the rail on both sides of the gap on both rails. In this shot you can see how the track is curved on both ends yet straight over top of the gap where it needs to be cut. I used the parallel track tool again to align the tracks on the far end beyond the bridge. In this view you can see I made the cut on the movable section beyond the gap. This is to ensure that you don't snag anything when the bridge is elevated. With the bridge up, you can see the guide block that I fashioned to hold the bridge in place to keep the tracks perfectly aligned when it's dropped down. Here are a few shots of the finished bridge on different angles. At a later time, I will scenic the entire area through each step of the process, and once you're finished, it's a good idea to run a couple of pieces of rolling stock through the gaps to make sure that everything runs smoothly. And on this project, everything ran according to plan. So I'm satisfied with how it's working. Here's a view of how it looked before I laid the track. Laying track, ensuring that it is properly aligned, is the hardest part of this entire project. I cut the gaps and trimmed the track throughout my entire layout with one cutoff wheel until I got to the last track. As you can see on the near track, it made it through the track but exploded when I got down to the tie. That is the longest any cutoff wheel that I have ever used in my entire life has lasted. Nearly a year on this layout right here. I don't know how many cuts I made, but I made a lot. Hopefully there's enough information in this video that allows you to start building your own drop down bridge or lift up bridge or whatever bridge that you plan on making. So until the next time, we'll see you.